Hello everyone, today I'm going to be going over my most recently completed lightsaber build. This is the Kestis Survivor by Corbanth, and I'm actually pretty excited to show this off because I took this as an opportunity to work on a lot of new things I've never done before, and I'll be able to show that off to you as we go, so let's just get right into it. So to start off, I'm going to show off the outside of the lightsaber. I did make a couple of adjustments. The main one, as you can see, is the weathered handle. It's pretty dark. Originally it was exactly the same color as this, but I thought it would be pretty cool to make it darker, and it's a little bit more accurate to the game, so I'm pretty happy with how it came out. If you see it in person as well, it changes depending on what light hits it. For instance, when sunlight hits it, it looks a little more gray. When it's indoors like this, it looks a lot more dark. So that is the first change that I made. The second change is raising the blade plug. So the blade plug, I have it raised a little bit. You'll see why later. This is actually a consequence of me making an adjustment in the emitter. So after my build video, if any of you have seen that, I actually went ahead and added something to it. I have what I like to call a wobble stopper. So essentially I had an issue when I put in my blade that it started wobbling side to side, and I didn't know exactly why it did that. So after a few tests, I discovered that I needed a little bit of a rim around the NeoPixel pins. That way the blade, let me show it off to you here, that way when the blade makes contact with the pins in there, the rim allows it to sit flat rather than sitting directly on the pins, because the pins rock around, of course. So when you have the little rim around it, it could sit on it while still having contact with the pins. So I'm not entirely sure why my design had it wobble like that. None of my other lightsabers do that, but I'll be keeping that in mind for future designs and installs of lightsabers. But anyways, you'll be able to see it does have a really cool effect to the blade plug. I'll show you that once everything is turned on. Other than that, I want you to keep in mind that I've got something really cool coming through these vents. So actually this lightsaber hilt is very interesting because normally in a lightsaber you have a speaker at the end near the pommel and you've got some venting for the sound back here. But this lightsaber doesn't have that. It's kind of strange where it has the venting right in the handle area. And unfortunately it fits a 24 rather than a 28mm speaker, but oddly enough, the 24mm speaker is pretty darn loud. I think it's actually plenty loud in this lightsaber, especially the sound venting does actually work quite well. I'll be able to show that off to you once I get this all started. But yeah, keep this in mind when we turn this on, and keep that in mind when we turn this on as well. So let's get right into it. You open it up by just unscrewing the pommel, and you've got your chassis here. This is going to be the first thing I get to show off to you guys. You can just slide it out, and as you can see, it's very, very different from my usual chassis. It's got designs to it and little elements that make it look a lot cooler than just my standard black chassis made of, PLA filament. But as you can see, I also added some rub and buff. This was an interesting process. I tested it quite a lot. I haven't figured out quite how to make it perfect yet, so it does rub off a little bit. So it doesn't like to hold very well, so I try not to manhandle the chassis as much so I can keep it on as long as possible. I'm not sure exactly if any of this is going to stick permanently or not, but that's just part of the learning process. So this was one of the many things that I tried new in this chassis. We have little design elements here. It took me a very long time to learn how to do this and to come up with the design that I like, and I think this came out pretty cool. And as you can see, I also changed how I do my OLED displays. This time I had some space to inlay it, so I put it inside of the chassis so that it's not on the outside, and I think I might be doing this for all my future chassis too. But it's pretty cool. I also have some design elements here, sort of some pipe tubing going right to the edges. It looks pretty cool, especially when it's turned on. Really ties everything together. But as you can see, I had a really interesting time designing a solution to the speaker, because oddly enough, the speaker is at the top, like I mentioned earlier. But how do you get that there while in a single chassis piece? Because I haven't learned how to split a chassis into multiple pieces yet in my designs, so I had to figure out how to make it all work in one print. So what I did was I measured out the corners here, created a little slot, or an opening, where I can put the speaker at a diagonal angle in there, turn it, and then slide it down. So as you can see, I've got the speaker right on the inside. Don't know if it's going to focus on it, but it sits right in there, and it actually sits quite securely, and I managed to get the wires from the rotary chassis PCB to fit right past it. It was quite tricky to get all the measurements down right in order to make this as solid as possible and leave as much room for my wires as possible. It was a balancing act. But as you can see here, I also added something new that I've never tried before. This is the Pixel Ring by Stock Custom Works. I don't remember which size this is, but essentially it's a lot of tiny pixels in a circle. It's pretty cool, and I thought, hey, if I have some slots in the lightsaber here, might as well try to see if I can get a shine through effect, because that could be pretty cool. So I tried that out for the first time. So we've got, what, 4 new things so far? The chassis, rub and buff, the OLED display inlay, the pixel ring, and then we move on to the most interesting, I think, the USB-C. If we focus in here, in the back, I have set up, come on, there we go, the USB-C port right here, as you can see. And I also have, oh my goodness, I still have not figured out how to get this camera to focus properly. We have the kill switch, we have the USB-C port, and this is the USB-C charging module. Technically, I don't need this port on there. You can charge the battery through your micro USB. I don't know exactly which type, I think it's just micro USB. But I haven't figured out how to remove that. I tried it a little bit, but I couldn't figure out how to remove it. I'll have to figure it out some other time. But for now, it's just in there. It doesn't really interfere with anything. It just gives you a little bit more to look at. But yeah, the USB-C can charge the battery. It charges the battery through this USB-C charging module, or I guess it's just a charging module that I plugged the USB-C to. And this also, of course, serves as data transfer. So I plugged this, or I connected the USB-C port to the micro USB of the soundboard, which is why I hid that part of the soundboard. And if you look up here, I designed it in a way where it hides this whole chamber in here that holds the Bluetooth, which sits in there, and also the wires that connect to the soundboard. So I made a little platform here, so you can just click it, take the SD card out, and then put it back in. As you can see, you can take it right out, then you can just put it right back in. It just takes, there you go. Pretty easy, but you'll never really need to access this unless, you're used to it and you just want to do what you've normally done and unplug it, put it into your computer and plug it in. But since you have the USB-C port, you don't really need to do that. It's pretty fast with the data transfer. So yeah, a lot of cool new things that I've done with this lightsaber, and I think it came out pretty cool, and I learned quite a lot of stuff. So let's just get into turning this thing on now. You switch it on. It of course starts with the non-working font, and as you can see, we've got the OLED display here. Looks really, really cool in that slot. And this is the pixel ring shining. It's pretty bright. At the moment, I have it pulsing. So when the lightsaber isn't turned on, it's just gonna pulse. Kind of mimicking how I would have a crystal chamber set up, which is pretty nice. But yeah, I guess this is a good time to show off one of the other features I have, like I have with most of my lightsabers, force activation. So you take a magnetic ring, and then you can just trigger the, whoops, I hit the camera. You trigger the soundboard, because it's got a magnetic detection, or magnetic sensor on it that you set up to detect a certain amount of magnetic disturbance. Then it's on, you wave it around, flashes, and then of course it's got gesture control. You can turn it off that way. You can also set up a lot of other things that the CFX has, but this is just what I like to set up. And of course it's really, really highly customizable other than this. Now let me just check. I have a list here of everything I want to go over, so I'm just going to double check it. Yeah, I think that's about it, so let's put it into the lightsaber. How I like to do it is I just put it into the pommel, and then I can just plug it into the lightsaber right here. I do like to orient the chassis in a way where these little pillars line up with these pillars. That way you don't have to see it through what little you can see of the little vents in there. And then I like to align the soundboard with the button because it's just it feels a lot cooler to use force activation on the button side of the lightsaber, and that's just how I set it up. But you can of course set it up any way you want. It's a rotary chassis PCB, it doesn't matter the orientation. So you just plop it in, and here's the other feature I like to set up. That's chassis detection in this case. I have blade detection, which, you know, you put in the blade, it detects it, or when it has a removable chassis like this, it's chassis detection. Now let me just turn off my air conditioning real quick because I'm sure it's a little bit loud. There we go. So that's chassis detection, and as you can see, we have the shine through on the speaker sound venting, which looks a lot cooler than I expected it would. Very happy with how that turned out, and you can still see it pulsing when it's not on. Now let me just make sure I'm not missing anything on my list here while we go along. Yeah, let's turn this thing on. I'll do force activation. And here's the shine on the blade plug. That is a cool after effect or a side effect of the wobble stopper I put in there. I personally really like how it looks. And I'll probably want to set something up like this on other ones that I build. It's pretty nice to look at, especially tied in with the shine through on the speaker section. And then here's the, what's it called? Here's the smooth swing. I just have on here set up a bunch of free fonts because I will be selling this, and this is going to go off to a new owner. So this video also is kind of serving as a reference guide for them. So that's why I have it on all the free fonts. If he wants to set it up with any of the fonts, like from the Survivor or Jedi Survivor game or Jedi Fallen Order, he'd have to purchase that. And if he wants me to set some stuff up, customization with that, you can just message me. So if you're watching this, message me if you've got any questions. I've got no qualms with helping you out. In fact, I would love to help you out and set this up if you have any questions. So let me see if I'm gonna miss anything else. Yeah, I'll just show off a couple of the easy controls here while the blade's not in, because I have limited amount of space on my desk here. So if we turn it on, you've got blaster bolt, blaster deflects if you press it, motion, it's got, oh, there we go. Clash detects better when the soundboard kind of wiggles, so if you smack it here and the lightsaber doesn't move anywhere, it's not really going to detect it. So if you smack it at different... There we go. It's just harder to do when you don't have a blade in, and etc. So let's have a look. You can cycle through the fonts actually by clashing while you hold down the power button. So if you, let me see the easiest way to do this. If you hold down the power button and you just smack it, this is one way you can cycle through the blade or the sound fonts. It'll go forward 1 in the sound bank. So just hold it, green. Clash, and it's green now, as you can see. Nope. We'll do it one more time. Purple. There we go. Now, that is one of the ways you can cycle through the blade, through the sound fonts. The other way is going into the sound selection menu, or the font selection menu, which I'll show you once I put in the blade. So, let's do that. Let me just quickly grab my tool here. And then you just go here with the blade retention screw. It's right up in the top of the emitter. Unscrew it a little bit. Slide the blade plug out. Here's a look at the blade plug. If you'd like, here's a look at the NeoPixel connector, if it'll even focus. Probably not. but you can kind of see it in there. Now you just take your blade, put it in, there we go, and then just hold it in place while you tighten it. Localized blaster effects. And then with the single button setup, I believe in order to clash, you have to hold the button down and clash at the same time. I haven't really messed with single buttons too much. So let me try and figure out how I set that up. There it is. But yeah, you just... It's hard to do. I'll probably have to adjust the off timing so I can hold the button for a little bit longer than I have it set up at the moment so that it's easier to go into the clash detection. Because at the moment it's a very small window you've got to clash and hold the button at the same time. Kind of like you have to hold it simultaneously. But anyways, you've got the local clash, localized lockup. And what happened here is it seems like I accidentally triggered the chassis detection, so it swapped back into the first font, which is what I have it set up as. When it has the chassis detection, it swaps to the first font. That's how I have it set up on CFX, because it's a bit different CFX than on Profi. So a lot of the controls I've actually forgotten how it works, but I will have in the description of the video a quick interaction guide from Plector Labs, basically going over how to operate the lightsaber generically. Some of them might not be set up, some of them will be, so you'll have to just experiment with which ones work and which ones don't. But in general, when you clash at an angle, you've got tip drag. I believe there's a force activation effect, but I cannot remember for the life of me how to do that. But let me just see what else I've got. So we've got the quick interaction guide, the sound font menu. Yes, let's go over that. So, alright, I don't need it on for this. So when it's off, you hold the button for a couple seconds. It will cycle through since it's a one button setup. So it cycles through a couple different settings. I don't know all of them, but one of them is definitely music. So if you stop holding it while, I don't know, within those millisecond intervals or whatever it is, it will start the music. But if you hold onto it all the way to the end, it'll go to the font selection menu. And then you can just click the button and it'll go forward.
White, yellow.
I have about 30 fonts on here, including the non-working blade fonts, so all the working fonts are about 29 of them.
You are as clumsy as you are stupid.
The first maybe 10 or 11 are all free fonts that I've selected to put on my lightsabers. And then the rest are all CrystalFX standards.
CrystalFX. CrystalFX. Granny. Youngling.
I love this font. The Nyan Cat Rainbow. I'll show that off to you later.
Ancient prophecy. Audio player. SD card USB access.
So that is actually going to be really important for later. So remember the SD card USB access for when I bring it up when we talk about the USB-C port.
System menu. Games. Exit menu.
And yes, you can play games on this. I haven't done that in ages. So we're back to where we started. If you turn that on, I can show you the, forgot what it's called, but it's basically the color selection menu and the blade profile selection menu. I actually do not remember how to trigger that on here. So unfortunately, you're going to have to reference the quick interaction guide for that, for one button, because I forgot to research that before I started this video, so you'll have to research that on this quick interaction guide. But basically, I do have it set up where you can change the color pretty easily. You just press the button and you sort of flick your wrist and you cycle through all, I think, 30 colors that are here. So there's 30 colors, 30 blade styles. The blade styles, or blade profiles for CFX, is basically the effect on the blade. You see it a lot more in person than you do on camera, because it's very minor. For instance, this is all set up for the Jedi Survivor, Jedi Fallen Order blade style, where it has a sort of wave up effect, where the energy kind of goes upwards. You can see it a lot better on this red, which looks orange on camera, but it's red. And then we're going to be back to blue here. Now, I showed you the force activation. Now let's go to Bluetooth. So, let me place this in a good location here. I think that'll do. So, Bluetooth. The app you're going to want to use is CrystalFX. That's the best Bluetooth app, and I think the only real Bluetooth app you'll need to use for crystal focus lightsabers. It'll come up as FSC BT909LE, and then when you click that, you press connect, and the first time that you connect, it'll always ask you what your passcode is, but then it will never ask you after that on your one device. So if you use a separate device, it'll ask you again, but basically the code is 6 zeros, which is the standard for all Bluetooth things. For any of you watching who are not going to be the owner of this, if you have a Bluetooth lightsaber, I do not know what your code is going to be, because they might have changed it or whatever, but I always leave mine at the standard one. But anyways, here's the CrystalFX app. I'll give you a little bit of an overview. You've got the blade style library at the top, which is basically online library of all the blade styles that are created and placed on the library on the CrystalFocus.net website, which is pretty cool. Go check out CrystalFocus.net. They've got a ton of resources on Crystal Focus, so basically if you have any questions, you want to set up your lightsaber to be really cool, just head over there. But basically you've got that. Kyber Connect, no idea, cannot remember what that does. You've got your remote control, which is where you turn things on, turn things off. You've got your clashes, all your effects, but the most important thing for me is down here in the custom command section. If you need to recalibrate the force activation, what I do is I type in the command magcalib, which basically, when you trigger it, it is the magnetic sensor calibration, which I guess, establishes the magnetic field around the soundboard. So you just do magcalib, send it, it'll send it into that mode or whatever. It'll ask you to do a few things. So basically, you're going to want to spin the lightsaber. I guess I'll show you with my phone here. You spin the lightsaber this way. At least this is what I do. I had no idea what the heck those words meant when I first started this years ago. Then you spin it this way, and then I like to roll it. And then you press the button when you're done, and boom, the button on the lightsaber. And boom, you're done. That's recalibrated the force activation, so if that ever acts up, it's basically set right there. Now you've got over here the volume. So as you can see, I do have it set on 60 because I don't think it really needs to be any louder than 60. And if you go any louder too, I think the speaker starts to be a little bit wonky, where it starts crackling or whatever. So I like to keep it at 60. It's plenty loud, but you can mess with that if you wish. iSaber music, I have not messed with iSaber at all. I will need to in the future. And in here is where you mess with all of your configurations and setups on your lightsaber, and you can actually edit them straight from here, so you don't even need to plug in with any of the fancy things that I've set up here. And I apologize for that sound, that's my rabbit drinking in the background. So firmware update is the other thing that's really important in here. It makes it really, really easy to update the firmware on any lightsaber installed with Bluetooth. Basically, what I do is this bootloader remote. So you're going to want to download the firmware from Plector Labs, which is going to be in the description of the video, and along with all of the other resources and guides for customization and whatever else that I think is very useful for lightsabers with Crystal Focus installed. It's all going to be in the description of the video. So you can go download your firmware from the link there, do fw.dat, basically rename the firmware to be fw.dat, plop it into your SD card, and then, or I guess, plop it into your SD card through your USB-C or the SD card itself in this case. So then you just press update firmware and boom, it's done. Really, really easy. And I know there's a few other methods here. Automated, if you just download it, extract it to the SD card, rename the file instead to auto_fw.dat, boot the saber, and you're done. I like doing the bootloader remote, that's just easier for me. But other than that, I guess I'll show you the main configuration real quick. This is how you can go into all your config file parameters and whatnot. And I'll just show you the... Oh, it's probably asleep right now. Let's see. You asleep? Might be asleep, I'm not sure what it's doing. If it ever acts up in a way that, you know, you don't really know what's happening, you just... I think it froze or something. There we go. You just turn it off, turn it on, and you're good. So, there we go. So let me, once again, connect to the Bluetooth here.
Green. Purple.
I'm just going to show off maybe all of these. There are about 30, so
White.
just hold tight for a moment.
Yellow.
You are as clumsy as you are stupid.
And here what I'm doing is I'm basically just clicking next font instead of turning it off, turning it on, going to the next font. Some of these are quite loud.
Green. Purple. Red. White. Yellow.
You are as clumsy as you are stupid.
Take your weapon.
I'm going to skip that one.
Break me down with all of your hatred.
There we go. This was really cool. This blade style is one of my favorites.
This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight.
Green.
So it looks like it's disconnecting occasionally, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of troubleshooting with that. I don't know why it's disconnecting randomly there.
Purple.
So let me
Green.
go backwards here,
Prophecies.
so I don't have to cycle through everything. Oops. Alright, I'm going to have to do a little bit of troubleshooting with that real quick, but other than that, that pretty much covers all the Bluetooth things you can do. Now let's just take out the blade here. There we go. And I do want to go over the USB-C and how I have it set up here. You basically unscrew the pommel. You know what I might actually do? I might see if this is creating a little bit of space and wiggle room, so if it accidentally disconnects or whatever, then I'll prevent it by 3D printing something real quick down here just to keep it all pressed in. If that doesn't fix it, it's got something to do with the software, in which case I'll just, troubleshoot until I've got it right. Now, with the USB-C, when you plug it in, if you want to do the data transfer, well, first off, when you plug it in, you know it's charging the battery when the, let's zoom in, come on, there we go. You know it's charging the battery when the charge board turns red, it's got a little red indicator, and then it's fully charged, I think when it goes green or something. I've never seen it turn green, but I haven't sat here and charged it long enough. But anyways, that's how you know it's working, and then in order to make it plug into your computer, you plug it in, plug in the other side to the computer, and then you cycle through the menu until you get to the USB access thing from earlier.
Sound bank selection.
So once again, you leave the chassis in the hilt so it has access to the button, plug it into the computer, go into your menu,
This is Jeff H.
Audio player.
SD card USB access.
then you go to SD card USB access, and then you just
SD card USB access.
hold it down, but when it's plugged in, it just stops saying anything and stops making noise, and then your SD card will just pop up on your computer. So that's going to be
System menu.
how you
Games.
set up and use the USB-C.
System menu. Games. Exit menu.
There we go. Now let's just select it. And that pretty much covers everything. I did come across a couple things that I will need to adjust, but other than that, this is one of the coolest lightsabers that I've made that I'm pretty proud of, because I did try quite a lot of new things on here. So hopefully that will all, well, hopefully I get all the glitches figured out. It's only one glitch from what I can tell. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this lightsaber overview. And for the person who's going to be owning this in the future, I hope you enjoyed. I will be checking out those glitches and stuff. It does seem like a software thing, so I'll spend some time on that. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys want to see in the future. I do have a couple lightsaber builds that I have coming up. I don't know when I'll have video footage, let alone editing of it, but you can look forward to a few of those cool builds. But anyways, thank you all for watching.